This recording is to show you the variety of ways you have to look up parts in the new Nexpart Parts and Accessories Catalog that's powered by our ACES database. Our traditional Nexpart catalog, the classic lookup, really only gave you one option for finding a vehicle, and that was using the year, make, model, engine, and after that you basically used group, subgroup, and part type to go ahead and find a part. And that's the only way you really had to search. You could in fact use what we call our older smart search, but allowed you just to find one keyword. So let's just call it you had two ways to find parts. Under the new catalog, the Parts and Accessories Catalog, you'll actually have 6 ways you can find a part for a vehicle, and we'll go through those. So you can still go ahead and pick a vehicle. So for instance, I can go ahead and pick a 2003 Honda Accord 2.4 liter and continue on. And if I want a suspension strut and coil spring assembly, I can go to the steering and suspension group. I can scroll down, find that strut and coil spring assembly, hit display parts, and I'm going to get that back on the screen. So that's a traditional, group, subgroup, part type lookup using the menus. But in addition, I have other choices. As you can see, I've also got A to Z parts list. So if I click A to Z parts list, I can actually also find that same part I was looking for using the A to Z parts list. But let's say I was looking for all the sensors on this vehicle. Well, I have sensors in a variety of groups and subgroups in a normal group subgroup, but if I just type in sensor and hit search, I am actually going to get just the sensors for this vehicle. So it's actually very easy for me to do an ABS wheel speed sensor lookup along with a camshaft position sensor and an O2 sensor. I'm actually able to do that 3 sensor lookup at the same time, but in a traditional group subgroup, those would have been in very different groups and subgroups. It may have taken me a minute or two to find all those. In addition to A to Z, I also have recent searches. So recent searches are great because as I've been looking up parts on this vehicle, I may have looked up some things in the morning while I was giving the customer an estimate, but now later on when my technician has come back and validated what I need, I could come back to this lookup, and earlier I told the customer we'd do a water pump job. Well, I can come back to this and actually click on the water pump, and my technician says it turns out the hoses are okay but the thermostat's bad. I can now click on just those 2 parts and recreate the lookup. So again, recent searches is keeping a history for 2 calendar days of all the history just for that one particular vehicle. If I were to look up another vehicle, I would see the order history, or excuse me, the recent searches for that other vehicle. So in addition to recent searches, we also have favorite jobs. Favorite jobs are great because this allows you to look up a whole set of parts for a particular vehicle, and it's vehicle specific. So in this case, I've created a water pump job, water pump and timing belt job in the past, and I'd like to do that for this 2003 Accord. If I select all the parts, though, it's only selecting the water pump and the hoses. It didn't select the timing belt. And the reason is, in this case, this particular engine doesn't have a timing belt. It's got a timing chain. So I was able to pick this. I can also just pick 1 or 2 parts, or 2 or 3 parts from the group, and look those up as well out of the job. I will show you that if I were to actually change this vehicle, and let's go ahead and we'll change it to a 3.0 liter Accord. So we'll do a 2003 Honda Accord 3 liter. You'll actually see that if I were to look up that same favorite job, I actually now can pick the timing belt. And the reason is the 3 liter V6 actually has a timing belt. I just select all the parts in that job, and now I click display parts, and now I've got them all coming back. So now I don't have to look up a water pump separately, from a coolant hose separately, from a timing belt separately, from the thermostat separately, and perform all of that time. It's actually going to go find all those parts for me at once. And finally, in addition to the jobs, I've got Service Trend Advisor. Service Trend Advisor is basically giving you an upsell opportunity. It's a vehicle-specific inspection sheet just for that car, just in your geographic region. So what we compile is from 200 million catalog lookups and purchases. We then take and put you in your region based on your login. So I'm in the Southeast region for the last 6 months, which is in this case from April to October of 2016. I also see what region I'm in, what states it comprises, and these are actually the most repaired in terms of the most parts purchased for this 2003 Honda Accord. So again, this customer may have come in for the suspension strut and coil spring assembly, which actually is pretty commonly repaired for this '03. It's the number 13 vehicle, but I may actually suggest to this customer, you know what, while I'm looking at the strut and coil spring assembly, I may check out the suspension control arms, maybe the ball joints, maybe some other things related to the suspension. And this shows me that those are things I may want to have my technician check, even though the customer's not complaining about them. And in fact, I may not just want to stick with things in the suspension. It actually shows that motor mounts could be going at this point, maybe even the AC condenser. So you really have a chance to upsell your customer, and all of these are single clicks, and you can actually decide to purchase these if your technician comes back and determines that those parts are in fact failing. So you have 5 ways right there to find parts. You've got the traditional group subgroup, A to Z parts list, recent searches, favorite jobs, and service trend advisor. But probably the absolute fastest way to find parts in the new catalog is simply by using our smart search, which is going to allow you to do a lookup very quickly without having to navigate any menus. So we'll go back to that example of the oxygen sensor. If I want an '03 Accord and I want an oxygen sensor, I just type in '03 Accord '02. I didn't even have to type in the complete words. It actually knew what I was typing. It finds it, and for the 2.4 liter, I'll go ahead and click search now. Now let's say I wanted the water pump for that '03 Accord, but it's a V6. I might actually type in '03 Accord. I don't have to type in the whole word. I can type in water pump, and then I can type in 3.0 for the engine, and now I've got a 2003 Honda Accord V6 water pump. So you can see you've got 6 different ways that you can actually look up parts using the new Nexpart Parts and Accessories Catalog. You've got group, subgroup, A to Z, recent searches, favorite jobs, service trend advisor, and finally smart search, which hands down is the fastest way to find parts in the new catalog. Thank you.